Okay, hello. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Anexis. I'm a blind author, content creator, and freelancer, and my pronouns are they, them. So today, after a very long time, in my opinion, considering when I made the first video on this book, I am reviewing All My Rage by Sabaa Tahir. Now, this author and I have some history because I read An Ember in the Ashes and The Torch Against the Night I'm pretty sure my senior year of high school. So I was like 17, and I found it because I was looking through I was at Barnes and Nobles with my cousin getting a gift for a Secret Santa gift for a friend, and the books came up, and I'm like, and my cousin's like, okay, yeah, those are really good books. I'm like, okay, sure, I'll look for them, and I found them on Bookshare. And since the first few lines of An Ember in the Ashes hit, I was in. Like, I was reading that book like immediately. Like, here's the thing, the thing is that at the time, for me, in high school, at the time, I was reading more physical books. I was reading it, which in my case, that is basically Braille books, but being read in Braille, so I call them like physical. So I was reading physically more often. So I was able to read a bunch of books really, really fast at the time. However, when I started listening to more audiobooks, I don't read Braille as often. It became a little bit more, it wasn't as easy for me it's not as easy, I think. It can be, depending on the book, for me to like read Braille all the time, the way I used to in high school. But now I am trying to get back to that because I actually really want to do that again. I would really love that. But yeah, that was like the time when I was reading it. And at the time, only An Ember in the Ashes and A Torch Against the Night were out. So unfortunately for me, to my dismay, I had to wait like 2 years after I finished A Torch Against the Night to read A Reaper at the Gates. I was like, what? I have to wait 2 years? I was not happy. I was like, why? Why must I wait this long? Like, why? Why is that necessary? I mean, I know why it's necessary. You know, I wrote my first book already, and while it's not as long as any of the books in the Ember Quartet, it does take time. So I know why. It's just that, you know, as a reader, you don't look at it the way that an author might, or anything like that. So I get it. But yeah, it was great. So that was where I got it. So I found out that she was like writing another book, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to read it. I'm going to have a great time. And I made a video on it, but I hadn't read it. I didn't read it when it immediately came out. I read it like sometime last year in 2023. And you'll enjoy, I think, the review. There are some content warnings I want to give really quickly. I give them in the video as well, but there is alcoholism, physical and sexual child abuse, and there is loss of a parent in this book. So make sure to take care of yourselves when you read. So with that out of the way, though, if you enjoy my content, consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you're aware when I release new videos. So that's great. And if you want to check out my writing, my website will be linked in the description. And if you would like to support the work I do, my Ko-fi will also be linked there, where you can commission me for services, as well as check out my bookshop and check out my debut, Daughter of Death, in both ebook and audiobook formats. You can also find it in other retailers such as Apple Books, Barnes and Noble, and Kobo. So if it's a lot easier for you to go there, completely understand. However, if you would like to buy directly from me, my Ko-fi shop is the place to go. All of that will be linked in the description. And without further ado, let's get into the video. Does anyone remember that somewhere around 2 years ago, the beginning of this channel, I did a Blind Anticipates, or at the time, Blind Woman Anticipates, for this book, All My Rage by Sabaa Tahir, and I was really excited to read it and everything, but it's been about a year or two since this book came out, and I'm basically just talking about it now because I basically read it like a couple of weeks ago. Does anyone remember that? And I'm so upset I didn't read it earlier because this book was great. And I'm going to talk about it because yeah, why not? I mean, it fits. It fits. It just fits. So, here we are. Let's start with the synopsis. So, Lahore, Pakistan then. Misbah is a dreamer and storyteller, newly married to Tufik in an arranged match. By the way, I did listen to the audiobook, so I'm doing my best to remember the correct pronunciations of their names and of the places mentioned. After their young life is shaken by tragedy, they come to the United States and open the Clouds Rest Inn Motel, hoping for a new start. Juniper, California. Now, Salahuddin and Noor are more than best friends. They are family, growing up as outcasts in the small desert town of Juniper, California. They understand each other the way no one else does until the fight, which destroys their bond with the swift fury of a star exploding. Now, Sal scrambles to run the family motel as his mother Misbah's health fails and his grieving father loses himself to alcoholism. Noor, meanwhile, walks a harrowing a harrowing tightrope, working at her wrathful uncle's liquor store while hiding the fact that she's applying to college. So she can escape him and Juniper forever. When Sal's attempts to save the motel spiral out of control, he and Noor must ask themselves what friendship is worth and what it takes to defeat the monsters in their pasts and the ones in their midst. From one of today's most cherished and best-selling young adult authors comes a breathtaking novel of young love, old regrets, and forgiveness. One that's both tragic and poignant in its tender ferocity. Okay, so I'm just going to give you some quick history of my history with Sabaa Tahir. So I read her Ember Quartet. It was An Ember in the Ashes. I have yet to review it here, but I will soon. I'll probably reread it because that book was awesome, and I remember loving it. Every book got, I think, 5 stars. I think even A Sky Beyond the Storm, which I don't remember if I had issues with it, but I think all her books so far, everything I have read by Sabaa Tahir, has received 5 stars from me. So, yeah. And this book is no different. This book is a little bit different, however, than An Ember in the Ashes, because An Ember in the Ashes is fantasy. This is contemporary fiction. And, yeah, so it does have a bit of difference in genre, but it does explore similar themes. It does explore similar themes of like parents and what parents and the relationships between with their children, and how that kind of goes. So it does explore those things in that, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Right now, I would like to also just say quick content warnings for this story. I plan to do spoiler free, so I don't plan to go very deep into this, but there are a couple of content warnings. There are content warnings in the book. I would definitely read the book's content warnings before you basically go through this book. So content warnings that I can remember off the top of my head right now, because I do not have a copy of the book right now. I brought it from the library and I didn't download a copy of this for Bookshare. But there is child abuse, both physical and sexual. The sexual abuse kind of just happens off page. We kind of just get told about it, but that is a thing that happens in the book. Physical abuse happens. There's like one scene on page, and it happens to one of the teenage characters. Um, and it is implied, however, that it happened before, when she was a kid. So there's that. There is loss of a parent. There is alcoholism and drug addiction, and I think that is it. If I remember any others during during editing, I'll just add it to my intro. That way, all the content warnings are there. But those are like the content warnings I can I can sort of give you. But other than that, so let's begin with the review. So the prose is great, which is expected from Sabaa Tahir. Sabaa Tahir is a wonderful writer, so I expect the prose to be awesome, and I was not disappointed. It is, by the way, sorry that you hear my phone. It is very good. It is easy and accessible to read, and it's very much a page turner. Like, it's written very, very well. The story is written in 3 point of views. It is told in, there is the past, which is told in Mizbah's point of view. And then there is the present timeline, which is told in Nur and Salahuddin's point of views. And they are all told great. There's a pretty good balance. All of them are in first person, which makes sense to me. Tahir wrote An Ember in the Ashes all in third person from all the point of views, even those that she added later in the story. So makes sense that she would write this in first person to me. I haven't read anything with her in third person yet. So but yes, that is the so that's where that's how the story is told. The pacing is really, really slow. It is a very slow paced story, and it really gets you to where it kind of wants you. It builds up everything, but the pacing is slow. It is very, it's a very much a slow burn. Although for like 376 pages, or a little bit less, about 370 pages, I'll say, it did great. It encompassed pretty much everything in a really short amount of time. So it builds up every single part of this story in a very slow burn way, and I liked it a lot. We got to spend time with our characters and everything we have. And when we have the scenes of anger and rage, we are slowly getting where we slowly kind of get to that. Now, this is where the title comes in. I said the title is that this is how Rage should have been written in Iron Widow, and I want to make this comparison because I think this is important. So there is I want to make that comparison because it's important. But first, we're going to talk about the themes, because there are themes of grief and abuse, but there is also the theme of anger and rage and the differences and how that kind of can spill over, and how the cup could, or like a metaphorical cup if you want to call it that, but like how the cup can absolutely overflow. And it mainly happens, the rage aspect of this happens more to Nur than anyone else, although Salahuddin does have moments, I think, of like helplessness. Nur is the one that kind of experiences, I think, the most amount of rage. Although they both experience rage in different ways, she's the one that's, I think, more vocal in the book, basically. And I want to say this because I think it is important that I explain why I said why I titled it the way I did. So in Iron Widow, we have Jetienne, who is supposed to be our feminist character. She's supposed to be a feminist character, and she's supposed to be breaking barriers and getting stuff done, and she's pretty much angry all the time from what I remember. Like she's angry at the misogynistic system. She's angry that she has to do this. She hates that, things are the way they are, which valid. But what we don't get is what we don't get is how she came to this hatred and realization, because the thing is that when she is she grew up in a culture where this was normalized, so it would make sense that she would find it normal, and that she would be like, yeah, this is what I have to do, and how it works. And maybe later on she would learn, maybe through some things, I don't know, some kind of influence, she would learn that it's wrong and it's terrible, and then her anger would come out. This would make sense in a lot of ways. Like I think that I okay, let me go this way. I am originally, for anyone new, I am Dominican, and that is my country of origin. That is where I was born. I was born in the Dominican Republic and came to the U.S. at age 7. The education system over there and over here are pretty different in nature, and the culture I would have grown up in, if I grew up over there, would have been different as well. There would have been different things, maybe different expectations, and in general, it would have been very, very different from the way I grew up here. But since I mainly grew up here, even though I went to DR during the summers, I have an entirely different view of Dominican culture, and I have an entirely different view on how I think things should be and how they are, and all that stuff that I think are important, right? I have an entirely different view I view Dominican Republic very differently now. I feel I'm both close and distant at the same time, but I view it very differently, and some of the things that happen there, and some of the expectations specifically toward women that they have there, get me annoyed and angry, because I grew up in a place where I could very much be myself. And it's a lot easier in the US to be yourself and be different, and be accepted for that difference to a degree, right? It's a lot easier, in my experience, to do that, because there are certain things that I get here and that I am privileged to have here. So that has been my experience personally. Obviously, that is not entirely correct, because the US is currently kind of a mess, and they have done, like, the politicians have done some shitty crap. Like, they've done some bad shit. But before all this shit came on, before things like Roe v. Wade were overturned, things were relatively, in my experience, slightly better. I'm still okay, but I am technically, like, affected by some of the changes that have been done to the US, right? So those are things to keep in mind, right? So I was influenced by American culture more than Dominican culture, which makes perfect sense, because I didn't grow up in Dominican Republic. I know about it. I know some of its history because I decided to learn about it. I know the traditions, and I know what, for some reason, like, the way that they are, and the way that, and all that stuff about Latin culture. And I know this stuff, and I know the stuff that gets me generally angry, and it is because I grew up differently, and I know better now. And I know that not a lot of that stuff is not okay, right? But again, it changes, because I was privileged enough to be in a different place, and I have been influenced by my circumstances, which is what we do not see in Iron Widow. We see things that happen, but we do not know how she came to the realizations that this is not good. Like, that is what we do not see. However, in here, Rage is written so eloquently. We see how Nord goes from, like, no, my uncle saved me. He gave everything up to take care of me. He did this. He did that. He took care of me. I have to be nice or whatever, I have to do this, to her going like to her going like to her realizing, oh shit, I was in a really bad situation and I was justifying it. We get to see that, and we get to see it through her influence with Mizbah, who basically treated her like a daughter. Her relationship with Salahuddin, but mainly Mizbah, because Mizbah was basically the mother that Nudna didn't have, or didn't get to have due to events in the story, right? We get to see that through Mizpah a lot, and her influence on Nuda's life, and we get to see that as well through um, the things she sees in school and the things that she gets to see on a daily basis, which we don't see again in Iron Widow, which is why I titled it This Is How It Should Have Been Written. Like, rage is something you feel when, in my experience anyway, rage is something you feel when you have been experiencing certain things on a regular basis, and you eventually, it takes a little bit, but you eventually realize how fucked up it all is. So you feel anger, you feel rage, you do not want this to continue. You are upset. You realize that it is there's a degree of injustice in the way that you are being treated, and then the way that things are happening on your end. You start to realize that, but it's not a thing you just come up, like you just know automatically. There are things that are set in place that you would then realize, and that is what Sabaa Tahir did super super well, that I wish Iron Widow did, because as a concept, Iron Widow, wonderful. Like, it is very good as concept. It's just amazing. I liked the way that it kind of worked out, but I would have loved for it to actually, to actually do more with what it had. I would have loved for it to actually do do a lot more than just we start with an enraged character, which is why, if anyone really wants to read Rage in a way that like feels kind of um you know that feels more natural, I think All My Rage is perfect for that. um that just great. So that's where I stand with that. Again, I talked a little about the characters, but we're going to talk about that really quickly. The characters are amazing. I love Misbah. I love her, and I really like how everything kind of went out for them. I really like the way that we got to see them, like their relationship, and I really liked Nerd a lot. I love all these characters. I think they're amazing, and I had a really great time just kind of following them. They're very layered, and all their layers are basically revealed in a very slow way. Like, it reveals the layers are revealed in a way that feels like really good. Like, it's just a very slow reveal of them, and I liked it a lot. It's really really amazing. It's just like, I would gush about this book forever. It's amazing. I really appreciate the family dynamics, and how there's also a difference here. A theme too is like to about like family, and how you find it versus like your real one almost, and who you consider family, and it's really nice. It's really really interesting. This book also explores other themes as well, though not as it explores them well, but I think it's not its biggest focus basically. So I'm not gonna touch on them, but I do think it does it really really well. But yeah, it's overall, this is a wonderful book. I would definitely recommend the audiobook. It is narrated by three different narrators, so each narrator has a different point of view. So each narrator has a different, yeah. Each point of view is narrated by a different narrator. There it is. That's what I want to say. But it is amazing. I recommend the audiobook. You can definitely, I'm pretty sure you can definitely find it in Audible, but you can also find it in other places. I'm
I got it through my library. I have nothing but good things to say about this book. So yeah, it's wonderful. And if anything, here writers can absolutely learn how to write rage in a way that feels very natural. And that is what I want from books that explore anger and explore angry women, because they are not just women. I don't think, not even just women, but like people in general, I do not believe are angry just to be angry. Like something happens that would like make your anger a thing, right? I feel like something must happen for that anger to be to be a thing, right? That's my thought. That's my opinion. That anger happens. That like anger happens for a reason, and it isn't just because and it isn't just uh for like just because, it happens for a reason. So those are my thoughts on that. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Have you read All My Rage? Do you plan to read it? If you've read it, give me your thoughts. I want to know everything. Anyway, cut to future me giving you everything else that they have to say. So here we are. But let me know in the comment section your thoughts. I really would love to have a conversation about this book.
Okay, hello. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I do want to say, upon watching this video, I still think that Iron Widow was a great comparison to how I think Rage should be written, but I also think books by Kirsten White, such as And I Darken, are also great comparisons for that, because they write anger and or in realizations really, really well. I will say that I am looking forward to, at the very least, reading the second book in the Iron Widow series, because I do want to see where it goes. While I may have critiqued it pretty harshly in my original review, I do want to see where it goes and stuff like that. So I do want to see that. I think it's fair to see kind of where it goes and what it does and what it doesn't. You know what I mean? I want to see where all that stuff kind of goes. I will be rereading Iron Widow, and I'll read the sequel as well. So I will let you know how that goes. But in the meantime, if you enjoy my content, consider subscribing and liking and commenting and turning on notifications so you're aware when I release videos. If you want to check out my writing, my website will be linked in the description. And if you would like to support the work that I do here and support me generally, you can find me on Ko-fi, which will also be linked in the description, where you can commission me for services, or check out my bookshop, where you can get my debut in ebook and audiobook format. You can also find this, of course, in other retailers such as Apple Books, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. But if you would like to buy directly from me, that is a great place to go. And until next time, everyone, consume stories. Bye!